Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great time at Suricon. I'm Tharushi, and I'm here to talk about how I worked on improving Python tools for Suricata as part of my Outreachy internship with the OISF. So if I were to give a brief introduction about myself, I currently work as a software engineer at WSO2, working on open source software. I was a former Outreachy intern at the OISF. So as you may have heard from Juliana, the Outreachy program is an initiative focused on increasing diversity in free and open source technology projects. So I've just completed my bachelor's in computer science from the University of Colombo School of Computing, which is where I live in Sri Lanka. I'm passionate about a lot of things, from data structures, building developer tools, information security, free and open source software, but most importantly, building an inclusive community in the world of tech. And a fun fact about me, so I've been in Python development for about 8 years now, and I absolutely love coding in Python. So during my internship, I worked on Suricata Verify, which is a Python tool for QA during development that is mostly used by developers to test many features of Suricata. So during the initial application process, I worked on several basic features that were very helpful to familiarize myself with the code base. So they varied from adding warning messages to researching about valid command line options and adding such options to clean up the Suricata help output. And also 2 other changes to the creator script. One was to add the exclude fields option, and another to add a global minimum required version of Suricata. So after about a month of evaluation, I finally got the email that I had been waiting for, the fact that I was selected to intern with the OISF. So coming into the internship, I expected a lot of complexity, a lot of complicated terms. Basically, I was already familiar with the theoretical aspects in information security, but I lacked the practical exposure and the confidence to take on such a project, because a part of me always considered InfoSec to be a guy's thing. So I was looking for a chance to learn valuable work skills and also to gain relevant experience. So I wanted to make sure I had access to mentors that I could actually interact with and learn from. So another thing I was looking for was having flexible working hours, because I was literally living in the other end of the world. So working with a multinational team who were working across different time zones was really helpful. It meant that at any time of the day, I had someone to escalate my questions to. And also like the networking opportunities. And I have to admit that my internship at OISF actually exceeded all of my expectations. So moving on to how I contributed to Suricata Verify. So I worked on a couple of issues. Firstly, implementing parallel tests capability for the tests in Suricata Verify. And secondly, to validate the eve.json output using a JSON schema. And thirdly, to support symlink for test directories. And then fourthly, to convert the CMP tests to Python. And I will take you through a few of these tasks that I worked on. So moving on to the first issue of parallel tests capability. So earlier, the tests in Suricata Verify were running serial. That is, of course, one after the other. And the total elapsed time was at 128. But now, using multiprocessing, they run in parallel. So by default, it would use the number of cores in your machine as the number of parallel jobs. So here, on the image I've shared, you could see the number of concurrent jobs being run is 4. And if you take a look at the elapsed time, so it actually came down to 45 seconds from 128. So you see what a great improvement it's made. But in the process of making it work, we also ran into several problems. For example, on machines that had too many cores, there were too many parallel tests being run, causing it to run out of memory. So as a solution, we limited the maximum number of parallel jobs to 8. And secondly, we came across some tests that were failing due to timing issues, which actually happened to be an inherent bug in Suricata. So I'm glad how this implementation helped us find such important things. So the second issue I worked on was to validate the eve.json output using a JSON schema. Basically, a JSON schema is a specification to define the structure of your JSON data. For example, you could make sure the source IP is of type integer and so on. So using this JSON schema that you see right here, we validated the eve.json output, which outputs anomalies, alerts, metadata, file information, and protocol-specific records. So after each test in Suricata Verify is run, its output is validated with this schema. And if the output of the eve.json does not follow the rules of the schema, it fails with an invalid JSON schema error. So you could also run this validation separately on all of the tests by running this check.eve.py Python script that we've introduced, or even just a specific file or directory by giving it as a parameter. So another issue I worked on was to support symlink for test directories. So currently, Suricata Verify does not pick up on symlinks. That is when I started working on it. So if you had a folder that had a symlink to a test, so that particular test would not be run because it wasn't identified. So we added support for symlinks as well. So moving on, in terms of the challenges that I faced during the internship, so it was basically an entirely new code base. So to help me cope with it, I started out with beginner tasks and then gradually increased the complexity as my confidence grew, because then you're able to tackle way more complicated things. And then there was always the self-doubt of asking dumb questions. For example, should I ask? Whom should I ask? What should I say? At one point, one of the mentors pointed out that no question is a dumb question. So I was able to ask task-specific questions on the Redmine ticket itself and other general questions on the Suricata forum. So finally, I was able to complete a very successful internship. And being a woman from a developing country, it was important for me to find a welcoming and respectful environment, especially where my opinion was heard. And so I found the work environment at OISF to be super friendly and respectful, where I was able to master my professional skills, soft skills, while gaining industry-level hands-on experience as well. For example, I conducted my first ever webinar as part of Women of Suricata, along with Juliana and the guidance of the lovely team, for a beginner's audience as a guide to adding new features to Suricata. So I was able to explore a career path in information security, and I'm looking forward to always keep contributing to Suricata. So this internship was a real confidence builder for me as an undergraduate. It inspired me to take challenges outside of my comfort zone. So I'd like to thank the amazing team at the Open Information Security Foundation for always being so supportive and helpful. So thank you for being with me throughout the talk. I hope I did inspire you to take on challenges. Feel free to connect with me on social media. And if you have any questions, I'd like to answer now. Thank you.